Welcome to the meeting room at Global TV Talk Show, a broadcast service of globalbusinessnews.net.
Now, here's your host, Ed Cohen.
You're on Global TV Talk Show. This is Ed Cohen in San Diego, and with us is co-host Stephen Howard in Mexico City, and our special guest today is author Will Scott. So, Stephen?
Thank you, Ed. This is our Thrive XL show. So this is where we want to talk to people about how leaders can help their employees thrive and strive. And culture is obviously a huge part of that, corporate culture. And so Will's the author of a couple of books, The Culture Fix and The Gift of Culture. And he's the founder and actuator, he calls himself, of the Culture Fix Academy. So I'm very curious, Will, as I was going through your book, you call culture a gift. Why is culture a gift for organizations?
Yeah, well, and as you said, it is the title of my second book. But culture's a gift because I believe it is the single most important thing to have and to lead with in an organization. And, you know, for all the initiatives that we can take in business, culture is the one that requires the least investment from a dollar point of view, has the highest return, and it's really fun doing it. And so I think employees and members of organizations are looking for that the world over right now, is to be part of an organization where they can feel good, love who they're working with, love what they're doing, and have purpose to it. And that is a gift if you can find that environment.
Now, before I know Ed has a specific question he wants to ask, but I want to ask you, and this must be a common thing you must face in an organization today. How do you build and maintain a culture in a hybrid working condition and a working from home or working from everywhere? And you see the smile on your face. It's not the first time you've heard that question, but maybe the first time from our audience.
That's right. Of course, it is. Yes, it's a very popular question these days. And I mean, the first thing is that really a lot of the same principles apply, whether you're working with your team physically in an office, or whether you are working with them 100% remote, or even, as you said, the hybrid situation where you've got a bit of both. And the main thing you want to come across with culture is that you care. And that as leaders, we care about the employees. And we need to go a little bit further with that caring initiative when folks are remote and 100% working from home. And I encourage, as long as it's a manageable, sized employee base, that the leaders do one-on-one check-ins with their employees at home, care about their home environment, care about how things are working out with their kids and with their pets and all that at home, and really showing that caring, value. And one other thing I'll mention that's, paramount in all cultures, which doesn't get talked about a lot, is that feeling of safety. And people are going to perform to their best if they feel safe. What does that mean? That means they can come, bring their whole selves and be themselves. And really, when we're beamed into people's homes, we're really seeing that, aren't we? And so suddenly I think there are as many advantages to this as there are disadvantages. The one thing I would encourage is that once a year, if the company can afford it, get everybody together physically and let those bonds that are so natural to us as humans happen in that, face-to-face meeting, if the organization can make that happen.
So this doesn't come from HR, this comes from CEO, right?
Well, I like to say the leaders of the company. And so that would definitely include the CEO, because ultimately people do follow the examples set by the CEO and leaders. And if they are acting in concert with the cultural definition and in alignment with that, then that's the best of all worlds. You've got a great culture that people can follow, and they see the leaders doing it. So I like to see the CEO and HR working hand in hand on this with the COO and the other leaders in the organization.
So does it matter if the C-suite person is a lawyer as opposed to just a businessman, a woman?
No, I would say it doesn't matter as long as their values are coming forward and their values are in alignment with the stated values of the organization. It really doesn't matter what the training or profession is of that leader.
So, and what is culture?
A lot of definitions for culture, but I believe culture is a feeling, and it's a feeling that is attractive to us and that makes us feel, like I said before, safe and cared for, as well as the other, of course, things like motivated and so on. And I think the three big things about culture are, in terms of that feeling, is, do I like the feeling of the people I work with? Do I like the feeling of the environment and where I'm working? And then do I have a purpose or a meaning to my work that is beyond simply revenues and profits, and that really describes the good that I do for the world? And that sort of speaks to the Simon Sinek kind of language of people don't buy what you do, they buy why you do it. So putting words to the why, a huge part of having a culture. And look, this is called Thrive Excel, so a thriving culture, of course, is what we're going for.
So this is your second book, right?
Yes, it is.
And was this already written while you were doing book one, or is it a hard start?
Yeah. So book one is really the textbook about, do these things in this sequence and get this predictable result with your culture. It's really the textbook. At the end of every chapter, there's a work section there. And a couple of years later is when the second book came out, The Gift of Culture, and that is the fable or parable of a coach going into a company and implementing book one, basically implementing the culture fix to get that desired result in a company that doesn't have a great culture at first, but shows in an illustrative, pictorial way, and there are a lot of graphics in the book, show how you can go to having that culture that is alive and thriving and being used to drive performance.
Yeah, Steve?
So with the average CEO tenure of 18 to 22 months, does that mean every time a new CEO comes in, we're going to get a new culture in the organization?
Well, gosh, is that really how often? Is that the average? Is it as little as that? Well,
yeah, it is as little as that.
Okay. Well, then I would answer that question like this. If the culture is bad, then yes, let's refresh the culture with the new CEO. However, if the culture actually is working, and we definitely don't want to mess with that, then it's really important that we hire a CEO who is going to align with the culture. And then things are much more likely to be successful, and we're much more likely to continue the vibe and the success that company was having under the new leadership of the new CEO. Generally speaking, I would say we don't want to change cultural definition too often. By that, I'm talking about the values and the other parts that I believe are part of a cultural definition. We don't want to change those values too often, but even with my own companies, because I'm an entrepreneur first, after 10 years, my first company made a major pivot. Most of the people had changed, and we decided it was a good time to actually rework the values. So there are times, but there are also times I find every 2 or 3 years where we might just tweak values, but hopefully not change them too much.
That's good advice. But unfortunately, in my experience, and I've done a lot of consulting organizations, when they go through massive change, that's exactly one of the first things the new CEO or the new leadership team does. They just bring in a new culture. And I worked at Citibank for many years, and we used to laugh. I mean, for instance, one of the aspects of the culture there was, first time I was there, the CEO, our culture was remote. All the decisions were made in the regions. And then the new CEO came in and everything got centralized. All decisions were made in New York. And then a couple of years later, he left, and the new CEO, now we're going to push everything out to the regions again. So unfortunately, it just seems to happen too often. Is that also your experience?
Well, yes, there are plenty of examples of where where what you described happens. And one of the things that I'm passionate and blog about is when companies have this glowing set of values written and published on their website, but then they behave and do things that effectively are the opposite of that. And they effectively stomp all over their own values. And I wish leaders would write a set of values, publish it, and then just bathe every day in the spotlight of really exhibiting those behaviors. And there are companies that have done a great job of that. I think Starbucks is a good example, Airbnb, Lyft, and Southwest Airlines. They, to date, have done a good job of living true to the values that they state. But there are many companies, and I've blogged about them, like Uber and Boeing and Wells Fargo, who say one thing and then act, really against their own values. And that is when scandals happen and things unravel and bad stuff happens. And all the things that they try to gain by doing it are lost with huge fines from the government or big embarrassment, tarnished brands. So yeah, that's what I think about that, Stephen.
Yeah, no, I agree. I mean, I wrote a book about the Volkswagen Saga. I called it The Leadership Lessons from the Volkswagen Saga. And Volkswagen had a 31-page document about ethics and morality and how they're going to do things right. And yet they purposefully cheated the EPA Clean Air Act, and it's cost Volkswagen something like $31 billion to date. And I've actually stopped tracking it a few months ago because it's just ridiculous. So.
Yeah, so you're talking about their diesel, basically, the way they lied basically about their emissions for the diesel engines.
Not only did they lie, but they actually put a cheat device in there. They're engineers. I mean,
That's right.
German engineers who belong to professional associations that are all about ethics and honesty and whatever. When they came to work at Volkswagen, they had to check those ethics at the door because they were told to put this cheat device in the car because it would cheat the emissions tests. That's all it did. It was specifically installed in the car to cheat the emissions test. That's the only functionality it had. And then they ran advertising about clean diesel.
Yeah. Well, Stephen, I'd love to know. I mean, so many companies are guilty of that. And I don't know if, it probably varies, but is that the individuals? Is it greed? Is it, whatever it is? But what you just illustrated is it doesn't pay. It pays in the long term to live true to the values. Yes. And I just wonder if the Volkswagen case is like the others, where they wrote these flowery, nice things, but then there were empty words on the wall and they didn't lead with those. Yeah, I believe if Volkswagen, if the CEO and all those leaders had led every day with the values, perhaps that would not have happened. And perhaps Volkswagen would not be paying the price of $31 billion for that mistake,
Yeah. You would hope so. You would hope so.
Yeah.
So I'd like to jump in and talk about CNN and AT&T. In the news yesterday. So frankly, why would anybody care if the CEO is in a love relationship for 20 years with the person who's executive VP and they performed really good stuff, delivering $1 billion profit? Hello, what's the big deal here? But what I think, after reading the backstory this morning, regardless of being a Hollywood-oriented business, CNN anyway, and Time Warner, but AT&T is not, and that's probably why they're selling out. They're just sick of all this stuff. But I don't know. But there's so many different culture classes in that kind of a situation. I mean, here's this guy Zucker, who's top of his profession for years, and respected and well regarded, and has a culture of high performance, and almost everybody knew that there was a relationship there, but nobody cared, seemingly, until AT&T found out about it through the back door, apparently.
I see. Okay.
All right. Well, Ed, why don't if we get back onto, because again, I got to leave in about 10 minutes or so.
Yeah.
You want to ask your question about the 4Ds, and then if it's okay with you, I want to ask you a question about what you're wearing around your neck, because I see it in your picture on LinkedIn. I see all these cultural icons behind you. So I want to ask you a question, something regarding, is culture about those kind of things, or what else is it? So go ahead, Ed.
Yeah, the culture, there's nine deeds, 9 categories. What is that about?
Yes. Okay. So the program that's outlaid in the book, The Culture Fix, yes, does have what I call 9 deeds in 90 days. A lot of people say, you can't change culture, or you can't change culture quickly, and you can't measure culture. And I wanted to show that you can do all of those things. And I've done them in my own companies. And by the time I helped enough companies, I had a framework, and I could see that, yeah, you could have these 9 deeds in 90 days and really help a company go from simply having core values, that sort of empty words on the wall kind of a thing, to an environment which was really a valued culture where people are talking about them. The words are easy to recall, and they're memorable, and they can be tripped off the tongue when needed. Because only if we know the values and can use them naturally in conversation can they really add power to our environment, and can we influence the culture, for the good. So the 9 deeds is really just designed for particularly entrepreneurs or CEOs who want a prescribed method. Because I think everyone knows it's great to have a great culture, but no one's really written before, what are the steps you go through to really get there? And so that's why I organized under 9 deeds in 90 days. I won't go through them all here. But one of the deeds, for example, is to discern what is the right words, and be very careful and deliberate about the words for your cultural definition, and not just sit in a boardroom with your other board members and dream them up. But I believe in going through a process of surveying employees, interviewing employees, making sure we really are teasing out the values in the organization, even asking your customers what values they see in your frontline staff. That's powerful, and I really, love that. But look, the 9 deeds are organized under actually the threesome of bring your culture alive, make it thrive, and use it to drive performance. There's 3 Ds under each one, but that's really the summary. Bring your culture alive by having really carefully wordsmith words, and then adding a graphical, with 65% of people are visual learners, make it engaging and visual, and make sure it's up on the walls. The thrive part is around having a launch, and about having training around the core values speech and being able to refer to it. And then the drive part is where the rubber really hits the road, and we do things like having notice and nominate schemes, interviewing for cultural alignment, giving people feedback on their fit with the culture, and even unhiring people who are clearly dragging the culture down.
We are pleased to welcome Adamo Education as a proud sponsor of Global TV Talk Show.
The concept of a microschool is the reimagining of the one-room schoolhouse. My name is Tamara Becker. I'm the president and CEO of Adamo Education. The microschool concept really does not just lend itself to the personalization and the customization of learning, but also the social development and fostering that sense of love for learning. Unlike what we see in traditional brick and mortar schools, we have multiple grade levels in the same learning space. Students can be enriched by the socialization that they get, as well as the academic support from peers. What differentiates Adamo is the fact that we are taking the best pieces of brick and mortar, of digital, and then at-home learning. Students here can come 5 days a week. They can come 4 hours a day. It will really just depend on what is best for the student and for the parent. To enroll, just reach out via phone, text, or email, and we'll have that personalized conversation, and we'll be able to get you all set. Check us out at adamoeducation.org.
Hi, this is Ed, and I thank you for tuning in to Global TV Talk Show, a unit on globalbusinessnews.net. We broadcast to the world, as you know by now. So I wanted to make sure that you understand that our programs are advertising supported. We're grateful for co-sponsors, advertisers. They have a marketing budget, coupled with a strong desire to be associated with our top quality program. And of course, I'm grateful. Thank you. So for the next few minutes, you're going to see some commercials. It's mostly very low key, and our prices are very, very reasonable. Our exposure for the advertisers go 12 months and beyond. Some of our advertisers have been with us since March, April of 2020. And Google Analytics has tracked over 125,000 what they call audience page views, which means you looking at this page, that's a page view. Now, if you happen to go to one of our other shows or to our radio broadcasts or to our newspaper or magazine, those become additional page views as measured by Google Analytics. And so when they say 125,000 since spring of 2020 up through Labor Day, a month ago, that's pretty good numbers. And the past 30 days, Google Analytics has measured just under 6,000 audience page views. And that, according to them, is a 42% increase in audience participation over the month of August. So thank you very much. Well, here's our advertisers, and we'll be back in just a couple of minutes or so, and we'll proceed with this interesting conversation. Thank you.
This episode from the meeting room of Global TV Talk Show is brought to you by
The Bridge School, the accredited international online private school of choice, at bridgek12.org.
Porch Light Rental and Destination Services. Reduce your renter lump sum or managed relocation costs. Visit them at porchlightrental.com.
And by airs.com. With our full range of services, we can help design and manage your international relocation. Find us at airs.com.
Primestone Partners, featuring corporate, government, and developer housing solutions, as well as senior-level advisory services. Find them at primestonepartners.com.
And by International Auto Source. We are the vehicle experts for expats, featuring all major brands of automobiles with flexible solutions and financing. On the web at intlauto.com.
Become a global player in your field.
Cross Culture to Go provides virtual support for your global business and career success.
We can help you thrive in 140 plus countries and markets.
On the web at crossculturetogo.com.
Something that's really neat is that the Bridge School partners with various organizations to provide learning for their students. For example, we partner with a major ballet company, and we are able to enroll several of their students into our school. So now not only is the student able to participate in a school and have a seamless transition while they're very active in their ballet career, but now they have other dancers that are with them that are doing some of the same courses. So it's almost becoming a camaraderie where they're taking similar courses, they're working together on their ballet, and really being able to form this great partnership with these organizations to provide a needed service. A lot of times there are student athletes who will spend hours and hours at the gym or at the basketball courts, wherever it is. And if they're attending a traditional school, they're in school from 8 to 3. They get a quick snack, and then they're at the gym for 3 to 4 hours in the evening. Coming to us and having that partnership, they're able to break that up throughout the day. They can have a morning practice, get some schooling in, have an afternoon practice, finish their schooling in the evening. So there's that flexibility. And additionally, if there are tournaments or performances, it's fantastic because if there's a week where they have shows straight through, they can take that week off of learning and then pick back up when they're done. So it offers this great flexibility. And for the program owners of these sports leagues, it is a win-win situation for them because they see this need. They see this need that their students need to make sure that they are obtaining the grades necessary to be successful adults in our country and in other countries. But it provides them an environment where they can be successful at both.
Hi, I'm Sergey Gorbatov.
I'm Angela Lane.
Together we are researchers, writers and practitioners in the field of human resources.
And we've also been multi-country, multi-assignment career expats.
We owe our professional development and growth to a very large extent to the international assignment opportunities that we have had.
But in a world where distributed work may become the norm, we also want to understand what happened to the nature, duration, and purpose of international assignments.
Together with our colleague, Julian Dalzell from the University of South Carolina, we're undertaking a study on the future of expatriation.
And we'd value your contribution. You can participate in this important study by completing a simple 10-minute questionnaire.
Access the questionnaire by typing in your browser tinyurl.com/expert study. That's tinyurl.com/expert study. You can also find the link here on Ed's website next to this video.
Thank you for joining us in this study. In return for your contribution, we'll provide you with a copy of our research.
And of course, you'll be invited to an exclusive webinar hosted by Ed, where we will share our findings right here on Global Business News.
And so please go to tinyurl.com/expat study. Take the survey so that we can better understand the future of expatriation.
I like that. And it ties in, Will, you're not probably aware, my very first book was called Corporate Image Management. And I wrote it, way back in the 1990s. And it was about the corporate image and how it comes from the culture and the value, and had nothing to do with logos or color schemes or taglines or anything like that. So you and I are very much on the same page, just a slightly, very different approach to it. But I'm curious I want our audience now, because you've got a lot of cultural icons. You got one around your neck that I've seen on your LinkedIn picture. I see some artifacts of masks and other things. So just so we clarify for the audience, when we're talking about this kind of culture, not talking about nationality cultures or domestic cultures, and elaborate on that for us, please.
Yes, well, a big part of it was when I was an entrepreneur first, and after I sold my second company in 2016, and friends started asking me to help them. I didn't want to be that conventional consultant that goes in with a jacket and tie, and tries to stamp a system on people's company. It was very important to me that I just wanted to keep doing what I had done in my own company, had been successful with. And we characterized our values in this company that I'm talking about, and it's all laid out in the book. And one Christmas, my team gave me outfits for all the cartoon characters that were created, the 5 of them, to match the values. So people we had a value of deliver success. And so that was represented by Danny Deliver, this sort of UPS looking chap with a cheetah, because we delivered fast, you see. And so I had a costume that would do that, and I would wear that in my town hall meetings. So then I think culture's fun too. So that's why I wear crazy pants. I wear my mala beads, by the way, slightly different reason for the mala beads. But I wear costumes to make it fun and to show that, culture, we can use all the arts in culture. Music, graphics, costumes, imagery, and even sort of statues or icons and things too. Anyway, but I wear the mala beads, borrowed that from the sort of yoga world, where I'm very passionate about yoga and meditation. And this reminds me to be in service. And, I've had my ups and downs as a leader and struggle with ego at times, but the mala beads, just when I put those on, okay, who can I serve today and how can I serve? And that's why I just want to give away and share everything I've learned as much as I can, and if any of your listeners want a book, by the way, I'd be happy to send them a book for free so they can take some of what we teach into their organization.
Well, great. And how do they reach you? What's the best way to reach out to you?
Best thing, I guess, is to email me, will@theculturefix.academy.
Culturefix.academy. Okay.
Yes, but also you can Google Will Scott. Google actually Will Scott, the Culture Czar, and you'll find ways to contact me as well.
Right. Excellent. Ed, I've been thinking, listening to Will talk here, and we live in such a divisive society, and we've talked about it so often on these shows about how that divisiveness has come into the corporate world. And I even say to people right now, when you go back to the physical workplace, basically it's a new company. Everyone's a new employee because we've never been in this scenario before. So I really would think that leaders should pay attention to what Will's talking about here and use the culture as the way to drive the organization together, reduce the conflict, reduce the divisiveness in organizations, and maybe even into society down the road. But that's my takeaway from this today. So thanks for organizing this, Will. Or sorry, thanks for organizing this, Ed, and Will, for joining us.
Well, no, thank you for having me try to produce this thing. So anyway, thank you, Steve, for doing this and finding Will. And Will, really have learned a lot here, and I have a pathway to learn more because, the steps to talking about culture and then implementing it and keeping it truthful and honest, I think that'd probably be the hardest damn thing in the world to do.
Yeah, well, that's why I like to call what we're doing the easiest fix for the hardest thing in business, because how do you get a great culture? Well, that's what we try to do, is have this simple step-by-step program that anybody can follow to really get there. And it's not about having core values, it's about having a valued culture. And that means you need to do certain things to keep it alive and thriving every day.
So, Steve, I see that you have like 3 minutes. So what do you think about the idea that because when companies open up again, and they probably will to some extent this summer, will everybody have a group meeting, all hands meeting, and say, okay, we're going to have a new culture here because everybody's changed, been impacted by the pandemic?
I don't know if it's a new culture. I think that'd be a great place to do, as Will said, if you can get your people together once a year, and even if you can't, even if it's regional, even if it's by office location. But I think importantly, I think if I was a leader of an organization, big or small, I would do exactly that. And I would say, let's just re-emphasize where our values are and how our values are going to take us into the future, and what that means in terms of how we behave, how we act, how we communicate internally and externally. And it maybe needs to be revised a little bit. For instance, I think in many companies 5 years ago, workplace wellness would not have been one of their values, their stated values, and they wouldn't be behaving. If I was leading today, I would say one of our new values is workplace wellness. And this is what it means in terms of physical health, psychological safety, mental health, mental well-being, blah, blah, blah. That's what would you do?
Yeah. Absolutely. And so how do we do that is by having some carefully, worded statements that we can refer to that say how we do behave, and also helps us say what we don't do.
Yeah.
I love telling the story about growing up in Zambia, when I used to love building clubhouses, and I would build tree houses and underground caves and bamboo huts underneath mango trees. And the first thing I did before I invited friends into there is I would nail some rules up to the side of the clubhouse. Why did I do that? And it's funny when I reflect back on my 10-year-old self, why did I do that? Well, I know I cared about the experience people were going to have. And I loved this clubhouse that I built so much that I wanted people to have a nice time there. And one of the rules was always be nice to each other. And so as soon as they weren't, I could say, hey, everybody, we agreed, and point to the poster on the wall. And this is what we don't do enough of in companies today. When we see some behavior or something's being said that's hurting feelings and is destructive to our environment and the quality of our work, we need to have an easy way to say, hey, whoa, hold on. And to your point, Steve, these days, if people are going down, vociferously talking about politics or religion or things that are going to alienate other people in the workforce, that's not good for culture.
Yeah.
How do we stop that? Well, we simply can say, hey, remember, these are our values. We all agreed to, to behave like this. And that's how we can get a very diverse group working together and pulling in the same direction, regardless of all the differences that that people want to talk about between us these days.
Yeah.
Thank you, Will Scott.
Thank you very much. Just to remind everyone, Will said, was it Will or Will Scott at the Academy Fix? Tell us your email address again.
Will, yes, thank you. My email address is, and if anybody wants help with any of this, it's will@theculturefix.academy.
Okay, theculturefix.academy. Thank you very much, Will. It's been a pleasure talking with you.
Thank you all for being on Global TV. Please come back again.
I appreciate the opportunity to share. Thank you.
Bye-bye.
Best wishes.
Thank you for joining us in the meeting room at Global TV Talk Show.
Have a wonderful day, and stay safe.